Hello and welcome to the Move Your Business Forward podcast. These talks are hosted by Rob Boll, founder of Evoke Management and CEO of International Leaders UK. We'll be talking with experts from both these companies about issues that affect SME companies today.
Welcome to this episode of the Move Your Business Forward podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Scott Dodsworth from GK Strategy. So, Scott, welcome. Thanks for joining me today for this.
Thanks, Rob. No, great to be with you. Thank you.
Good. So, Scott, you're part of the International Leaders Network I run. GK Strategy is a member, and I thought, given there's lots of topical things at the moment that are relevant to you and your business, I thought it'd be good time to have a chat and hopefully pass on some useful insights, perspectives, and tips for business owners that might be listening to this and is relevant. So, your business is ultimately advising companies on political risk, political landscape, and the kind of things that might be important for them to either be aware of, react to, or be prepared for. Is that anything else to add to that?
I think that's pretty much it. There's never a dull day here in Westminster, that's for sure. Although it's a slightly quieter Friday. The government has been well into its big AI global safety summit this week, with various countries represented. So the team will be focused on that. But in the broader sense, exactly that, helping organizations understand the world of politics and its various mysteries.
So again, as you say, an interesting place to be and sit and interact with. So I know, we're recording this now, which is November 23, right? So we've just had some party political conferences, and there's lots of noise that's come out of that. And as you just mentioned, something that I think is quite interesting is the AI summit that's just happened, or I think just wrapping up now in the UK. So lots of people that you wouldn't necessarily normally expect to be coming to the UK to have a conversation around this topic, which is really, I think, interesting for the UK, and also very on point in terms of the impact of AI and where that goes. So why don't we jump into that? Because I think part of what I think we could be talking about here is, one, a lot of people running businesses feel like they're just not much control, right? Because the government's going to do whatever it does. If we have a change of government coming up, things will change, probably not particularly quickly, but there's those kind of things. But flipping it around, there's been lots of examples of where government isn't necessarily good at things and actually rely on the non-government world to come up with solutions, ideas, and actually have a voice to actually shout about how things should go. And I think the AI business world and AI government regulatory space is a really interesting and quite fast moving thing at the moment, right? And it'd be great to just get your thoughts around that, your sense of what the UK is trying to do and what that means for businesses in the UK.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I guess the second most interesting podcast recorded this week was the one between the Prime Minister and the head of now X. So and that's really interesting. I think a good place to start. This is on the AI Safety Summit, at least, where governments look to industry, to business for solutions. And I think the British government bringing together the big players, the United States, the European Union, and China around a table up at Bletchley Park, but alongside those business leaders that are actually shaping the public policy and the public dialogue around AI and its different uses. And so I think that's perfect example of where government needs business and organizations to take the lead in informing better public policy. And it's making sure that businesses around that table, but on absolutely every area of public policy, from health and education to defense and security, that businesses are around the table and governments willing to be open and to listen to them. And, there are various forums that have sort of failed business in a sense over the last few years. The very headline kind of CBI issues, are they the right people to be around those tables, and where businesses actually can go direct to government and inform a better public policy and politics, all the better. I mean, the other big ticket item of this week and going forward is the COVID inquiry, getting a lot of attention at Westminster, but perhaps less so elsewhere. But, headline failure of government to be able to do big ticket things. Governments of all persuasions and in all countries seem to struggle to do anything more than one big thing at a time.
Yeah.
And all the business can be contributing and helping government and by extension the public to do things better, then having that voice is really important.
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of that, and I think people listening to what you've just said, and part of me is thinking that's never going to change, right? Because that's just the legacy thing, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on within government that people don't really interact with, engage with, understand, and you've got a mixture of people, I guess, trying to do the right thing, and other people not able to do as much as they can, and possibly just legacy stuff that means things don't really change anyway, kind of thing. And I think that's kind of the outsider's view on what goes on within Parliament. So how can business take a bit of a lead and, as you suggest, directly talk to government and have an impact? What are the things a business can do, especially if they're in one of these hot topical areas or things to do? Where can businesses have a voice and actually help and add value?
Yeah, well, our clients work with us to make sure that their great business strategies and their good messages and their values, frankly, are translated into the political discourse. And good government and good opposition are open to business. And we've seen, in the case of the Labour Party today, a much more engaged and open Labour Party with business, as opposed to the one of perhaps even this last decade and under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, where it really closed its door and turned its back on business and other lobby. And so absolutely articulating your voice and coming to government with solutions. It's our businesses that are the innovators, that are the creators, that add value to the workplace and create great high value jobs and opportunities. And whether you're in sort of med tech, or defense, these are pioneering, really inspirational businesses that actually government should be taking a view of and taking leadership from. And we find in the current Downing Street and Rishi Sunak's slight reorganization of government over the last 6 months, and having this relatively new department for science and for innovation and for technology, that's a department that is very much open to business and being influenced by it. And as I say, the Labour Party is very much in that place too.
So if for example, we did have a change in government in the next 12 months, do you feel that's going to carry on? Do you think that's going to be still supported, not suddenly get pulled? Do you think that's a kind of combined thought piece that's important? Yeah,
I think so, exactly. I think this is a very changed Labour Party, and Rachel Reeves's economic team is very much more open to business and right across the board as well, and willing to confront some of those more challenging areas. And look, the country, whatever the future government's political stripe, is still going to be in the same, emerging sort of from the difficulties of cost of living, from energy supply, the constraints on the public finances of whoever is in government over this next period is going to still be the challenge. And I think, therefore, there's even more of a responsibility for businesses to be playing a part in the future government of our country. Absolutely. But I think, the Labour Party very open. But all I would say on the party and the future sort of general election, which we're expecting next year, has to be by the end of January 25. But governments don't generally want to go to the country when it's dark outside and raining, drizzly. It doesn't really give the best sort of mood for the electorate. But if we are looking at a general election, say this time next year, this is the time now, today, and in these few weeks, to be properly influencing the way that the Labour Party is thinking about governing the country, and indeed what the Conservative, Liberal Democrats, Greens and others are wanting to do if they were in government or indeed in opposition in the future.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of what's happening right now, and you mentioned some of the stuff that Rishi Sunak's doing, do you feel he's grabbing the right kind of attention with businesses? Do you think he's actually engaging in some of the things that he's doing? People say, yeah, actually that's one, the right thing to be doing, and also people can actually get involved. Business can actually get involved with these things and benefit, and it's all aligned. Do you see that happening right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Rishi's own background as well, means that his team in Downing Street and across government is much more open and focused on government, as, past governments have been. But clearly we had just a year ago the chaos of the very short-lived premiership of Liz Truss, and before it, the wranglings of the future leadership of the party through the course of the summer before last. And so I think that this is at least a government over the last year, and looking forward to the next year, is much more open and engaged with businesses. And, whatever your issue, the more that you're coming with that thoughtful, solutions-based messaging to government, the more open and willing they are to listen to business, for sure.
Yeah, no, great. No, I think that really makes sense. It sounds positive, right? And I think at the end of the day, whatever party's running government, all of these things seem pro-business and actually opening up the doors for business to evolve and just get going, right? And at the end of the day, that's something that the country needs, and is what generally we're good at as a country, right? Is actually being innovative, generating business and opportunities, and taking that to the world. I personally think that's
exactly, completely. And in previous lives, being traveling overseas with British government ministers supporting British business, whatever your political background, and indeed whoever forms the next government, having that determination that it's the business community that are the economic drivers for future tax take, but also not standing in the way where there are regulatory issues and challenges, explaining those to government and making better policy is in everybody's interest.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I'm focused with working with SME companies, right? So rather than big corporates, and I've worked in those in the past, but SME focus right now. So what kind of things are coming up in conversation with you and businesses at the moment, which might be interesting to share? What kind of topics are coming up? What kind of things are you talking about?
Sure. I mean, it really is election focused now. A day, a week, a long time in politics for sure. And so the thought of an election running over this course of the next year seems pretty daunting, but the year will fly by, and our business small and large, are really focused on what a future government might want to do. And so absolutely reform and to various regulation from across industry, certainly sort of in some sectors around water and transport infrastructure, for example. But the broader macro picture as well, this, as I say, is a country that has massive constraints on the public finances. And we've been really pleased to hear that the Labour Party on the health service and on its reforms, and Wes Streeting's view of the involvement in the private sector to support the NHS, for example, is really welcome. But it's getting that right, and that's what our clients are focused on at the moment. The articulation of their sound business plans and their sound strategy, but the way that then that can translate into supporting a future government is exactly where we're at. And so that example of the health and tech innovation supporting the public sector and the NHS by extension is exactly the kind of language and the kind of conversations that we're having with the Labour Party, but also with government current. It's worth remembering, of course, in this system, talking to civil servants and educating them, they largely stay in those posts post political change. So there are a number of different audiences to be speaking to, not just at the very political level, but with government of, the small league government, the civil service, and that those conversations are happening too.
Yeah, sure. No, understood. Just because you're talking about those civil servants, and I think this might not be something a lot of people outside of that world think about, but we in the business world, we've had so much change, right? We've had so much change in terms of how business has to adapt through COVID, coming out of COVID. Just the pace of change is just phenomenal, right? The speed at which things need to happen. Do you see any of those changes and pace of change that business has had to adapt to survive being reflected in anywhere within government, which is a positive thing? Or or is it slow and clunky as I kind of imagine it to be? What's your kind of?
I mean, that's a massive frustration for business leaders who are used to running often much bigger and much more complex organizations than government. Surprise, surprise, and it is a frustration that and it's not just a British thing. The institutions of government are in their nature much slower. But it's finding ways to influence those, whether it's using those political levers, the think tank community, the kind of things that we can do to contribute to the civil service thinking around issues is being constructive. And I think we see it across our regulators as well. There are those that are quicker to respond and those that are less so. And that is a frustration of business, and so business leaders individually are certainly not alone in that kind of frustration. But it is nonetheless sort of finding the best routes to engage with government, both civil service, which is slower, but nonetheless being informed by parliamentary committee, by the political actors and levers of special advisors and policy advisors in opposition, to really tell your story, and as I keep saying, come back with those solutions to make the public's lives better, and obviously create a better environment for business too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you think there is a kind of desire for government to be speeding up or getting more efficient or whatever is required to kind of be on point? Because the example with AI that we started with, for any government to be on the front foot in terms of whether it's regulatory or whatever piece they're going to pick up in that space, it's moving so quickly. You can't have years of policy consideration. You can't have months of that. It's literally just got to be on it, right? Is that ever going to happen? Do you think there's any hope that and even if it is, I don't know if we want them to act that quickly, even thinking about it, but whatever is fit for purpose in terms of government's role for being on top of these kind of massive changes and accelerated efforts in technology through AI, do you think there's a kind of fit for purpose ability to catch up with that within government?
Yeah, and I think in technology, that's clearly the best example of where government is slow. And look, do politicians or to civil servants turn up to work on a Monday morning and think, oh, deliberately, I would love just to take it easy and go slow? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Is the machinery of government in its very nature considered and much slower than adapting to business change? Yes. Yeah. And I think that's exactly the kind of territory that we play in. And it's great organizations, whether they're think tanks or business communities, or the Tony Blair Institute, for example, where you can absolutely challenge some of that orthodoxy, absolutely tie that together with your company's strategies and create change. And that can happen. And I think in the world of AI, for example, regulators, governments across the world are going to grapple with fine meeting for 2 days north of London, in early November this year. But already AI is sort of outstripping the pace of slow public policy change, and I think that's going to have to be something that's addressed by government. Yeah. And I think coming together at least on a framework of a global safety standard is at least positive. But yeah, it is just something that, while frustrating, it is a reality of doing business with and influencing government. And like I say, there are great vehicles like big institutions and businesses, large and small, to have your voice heard and be constructive in making better government.
And I think part of this is if everyone's kind of in an ideal world focused on doing the right thing, we shouldn't be reliant on government to be ahead of the game and catch up, right? It's all about
absolutely
people and companies doing the right thing. And there's been so much focus on sustainability and doing the right thing for climate change. This is just another aspect of that, right? It's people have to take responsibility for what they're doing. And I think it's quite interesting hearing some of the stuff Elon Musk is coming out with, given he's a driver for that, but also being very open about the dangers and his concerns, which I think is I don't know, is that the perfect ideal. At least he's talking about it and generating the conversation. I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Yeah,
totally, exactly. And look at where the public look to for trust in governments or trust in businesses or in organizations and institutions. And it's our businesses that are creating that positive, as you say, climate change. They're where they're taking action on social value, where they're driving that kind of technological advancement and employing great skilled people. And so, while I think, government is an audience to that, but actually, the public at large are looking to the likes of Elon Musk and, great business leaders for that kind of reassurance around online safety, for example, or the future of AI, or the big question of, what does this mean for my future job prospects or my children's job prospects? And so, I think that's where business, and your members as responsible businesses should have their voice heard in the public dialogue and in public policy formation as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. So just to wrap this up then, Scott, and I think we could carry on talking for ages on this. I think it's really interesting. What would be your advice to anyone listening to this, someone that's running a business, looking to grow that business and pick up on the opportunities that are there? And there's so many opportunities out there right now in tech, but also non-tech as well. You mentioned a few things around health and all that stuff. So what would be your advice to any business leader to help them engage better with government, or feel that they're kind of working in the same direction as what we're surrounded with in terms of government and parliament?
I think it's having your voice heard, and especially at such a critical time in our political cycle in the UK, the development of manifestos, and then these parties going out and seeking the confidence and trust of the British public, perhaps in a year's time at a general election, but getting ahead of the game on that, making sure that whatever government forms after the general election, this is a new parliament and there'll be new priorities, and it's making sure that businesses' voices are heard within that conversation, for sure. And it ain't complicated. Your members are running fantastic businesses. They have great strategies. They have great values, and it's translating some of those into government speak to make sure that policymakers have been properly informed and we're creating better policy and, by extension, therefore, better government.
Yep. No, 100%. And if you would, saying it's easy, what would someone listening think, well, it doesn't sound that easy. What's the one thing they could do to kind of take up on your easy thing? What would you suggest they do?
Well, happy to speak to any of your members at any time, and basically focus on where their priorities are, whether it in the good and the positive that they want to contribute to the public debate, but more often than not, what is getting in their way, and how can we therefore influence government or the regulators to realise the opportunities for business and not get in the way. And our experience, certainly with the Treasury at the moment, is a very open one and a very engaged one on businesses' issues. And so absolutely, definitely speak to GK, and we can absolutely come up with the kind of solutions in the most practical way to align with companies' their great strategies.
And in terms of someone just trying to engage with their local MP or is that, would you suggest that's something people should be doing or can do? Or
look, politics is local, and it always goes back to the locality, depending on the quality of your member of parliament, or indeed the prospective parliamentary candidates that'll be emerging now on the doorstep. Engaging with them, absolutely. Our businesses, that's the first place to start, that network of their postcodes and who their constituency members of parliament are. They should be your best advocate at Westminster automatically. And then building out from that, you have influential parliamentary committees or all party groups that you might want to also educate and inform. And then you create parliamentary champions, people that are on your side. And it's best to make those friends in the good times so that you can go to them where you have a regulatory challenge or a reputational issue. And that is the best form of government and parliamentary relations.
No, awesome. Look, Scott, that's been really useful and interesting. And hopefully some useful takeaways and insights for people listening to this. So thank you so much for joining me on this, and perhaps we'll have another chat on one of these at some point as well. So thank you, Scott. I've enjoyed that today.
No, great pleasure. Lovely to speak, Rob. Thanks as always.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like more information about the topics discussed in this podcast, then you can find us on our website at moveyourbusinessforward.com.